Captain Jane Doe woke with a start to the blaring of proximity alarms. She jumped out of her bunk and rushed to the bridge, still buttoning her uniform. "Report!" she barked, sliding into the command chair. "We're being pulled into some kind of wormhole off the starboard bow." Her first officer, Commander Rizavi, responded tersely. Jane scanned the sensor readout with dismay. The Explorer was an advanced scouting vessel, but its engines were no match for the gravitational pull of the yawning vortex on the view screen. She immediately began issuing orders to break free, but each evasive maneuver only seemed to draw them nearer. "Helm, divert all auxiliary power to the thrusters. Ops, recalibrate the deflector array to emit an anti-gravity beam. Anything to get us out of this thing's tractor grip." The bridge crew worked frantically, but the Explorer continued its inexorable slide towards the shimmering blue maw. Jane wiped sweat from her brow as the ship groaned under the strain. Then, with a violent lurch, they were through. For a few tense seconds, there was only the haunting glow of hyperspace on the view screen. Then they were spit out the other side into unfamiliar territory. Jane let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They were alive, but the ship had taken a beating. "Damage report," she called. The responses came in from all departments. Navigational sensors scrambled. Main power offline. Fires reported on decks 3 through 7. Thankfully, no casualties as far as she knew. Jane slumped back, mentally cataloging their options. Without navigation, they were flying blind. But if life support failed too, her crew was in mortal danger. They needed to set down for repairs soon. "Get me something, anything on sensors," she told Rizavi. Her talented first officer managed to coax the busted equipment into giving up its secrets. "There's a terrestrial planet only 0.3 AU away," she reported. Jane weighed the risks. An unknown world could hold anything, but it was the only haven nearby. "Set course for the planet, maximum impulse," she decided. "Prep all hands for an emergency landing. This is going to be rough." The Explorer limped its way into orbit around the mysterious planet. Jane took in the sensor's data as it streamed to her command chair. Class M conditions, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, abundant liquid water. This world could almost be another Earth. She tried hailing it on all frequencies, but there was no response. For now, they were alone. "Take us down easy, Ensign," she told the helmsman. "Activate the emergency landing buffer system." They descended towards a large equatorial continent. Jane soon saw the problem. It was positively primitive. No artificial structures, no energy signatures, no sign of technology at all. She steeled herself. If this planet was inhabited, the locals were in for a big shock. But the needs of her crew came first. The Explorer touched down in a clearing between forests and farmland, with her stabilizers screaming in protest. Jane breathed a sigh of relief. They had arrived in one piece, if not exactly peacefully. Now the real challenge began. Survival on an alien world. Jane ordered the able-bodied crew to grab emergency supplies and equip sidearms as they cautiously disembarked onto the alien planet. She had no idea what awaited them outside the ship. The landing site appeared uninhabited, though signs of civilization were everywhere. Primitive farms and irrigation ditches bordered the clearing. In the distance, plumes of smoke rose from simple dwellings nestled between rolling hills. Jane led the away team towards the nearest settlement, phaser rifles slung across their backs just in case. Her boots sank into the muddy track as curious eyes watched them approach from stick huts. She raised a hand. "We come in peace," she called out, not knowing if the universal translator worked for these people. Sudden murmurs broke out as the villagers caught sight of the crew's strange clothing and gear. They stared reverently at the futuristic emblem on Jane's uniform. Several knelt right there in the dirt. Jane turned questioningly to Rizavi, who gave a bewildered shrug. A robed figure, adorned with crude, hand-stitched symbols of office, hurried forth. "Sky gods, you honor us with your presence," he exclaimed, prostrating himself at Jane's feet. Rizavi's eyes widened. "Captain, I think they believe we're deities descending from the heavens," she whispered. Jane frowned. She didn't want to exploit these people, but they desperately needed help. Perhaps playing along would buy them time. "I am Captain Janius, emissary of the gods," she declared, adding a bit of gravitas to her voice. "We come bearing knowledge from the eternal realm." Shouts of praise erupted from the growing crowd. The village elder gazed up in adoration. "You are most welcome here. We are the Xenorki. Command us as you will, your eminence." For a moment, Jane worried it was going too far, but she needed their cooperation. "Provide food and shelter for myself and my fellow emissaries while we impart our wisdom." "At once, your holiness." The Xenorki scrambled to fulfill her divine orders. Soon the crew were situated in the largest hut, feasting on roasted meats and exotic vegetables while planning their next move. Rizavi gave Jane a wry smile. "Nice touch with the eternal knowledge bit, oh Holy One," she teased. "Still, I feel a little guilty letting them worship us." "It's for their own good," Jane reasoned. "A little awe seems necessary to get them to understand our advanced technology. Once the ship is repaired, we'll reveal the truth before leaving." Rizavi nodded, though privately unconvinced. Before long, the Xenorki high priest interrupted with more lavish gifts. "Does this please you, great ones?" Jane smiled benevolently. "You have done well. In return, we shall bestow our blessings upon you." She performed a random hand gesture, hoping it seemed sufficiently mystical. The Xenorki beamed and bowed out. Jane leaned back, wondering just how long they could keep up this charade. Over the next few weeks, Jane and her crew slowly introduced basic technology to the primitive Xenorki under the guise of divine magic. As the gods, they claimed to channel their advanced knowledge through rituals and incantations. Jane showed the high priest rudimentary medical techniques to help heal his people. She demonstrated basic agricultural tools to aid in farming. The Xenorki marveled at these seeming miracles, parroting Jane's every word and memorizing the sacred rites that unlocked such power. Jane was careful to pace their lessons. Too much too fast could overwhelm the Xenorki culture. Her first officer, Rizavi, however, grew increasingly troubled. "I know we need their help while repairing the ship," she told Jane one day, "but this whole god complex is getting out of hand. They're really starting to worship us now." Jane nodded reluctantly. Some Xenorki had even taken to sacrificing livestock at a crude effigy of the explorer they had erected. "Let's start planning our departure," she agreed. "Once we've got the engines operational again, we'll reveal the truth about our origins before leaving orbit." But their work was interrupted by the high priest rushing in wild-eyed. "Divine ones, a rival tribe approaches, seeking to destroy you and seize your power. We must prepare for battle." Jane and Rizavi exchanged alarmed glances. They couldn't allow bloodshed in their names. This had gone too far. Jane raised a hand benignly. "Calm yourself, devoted one. We shall meet with this tribe in peace. War will not be necessary." The priest gawked at her in horror. "But your eminence, they are savages and defilers. We must fight." Rizavi stepped forward. "Trust in us. We shall parley with them as emissaries of the divine realm." Looking mystified, the priest bowed in obedience. "I shall inform the warriors to stand down for now. But I beg you, do not endanger yourselves." After he left, Jane squeezed her eyes shut in frustration. "I think it's time we drop this charade, Rizavi. We seem to have badly underestimated how much power they've granted us." Rizavi nodded gravely. "Let's pray this rival tribe is in a mood to listen." Jane watched grimly as the rival Xenorki tribe approached in the distance, armed with spears and primitive axes. Though outnumbered, her own Xenorki defenders prepared to fight to the death to protect their new gods. Jane turned to Rizavi. "I can't let innocents die over a lie we created. It's time we told the truth." Rizavi looked anxious but resolute. "I'm with you, Captain." Jane asked the high priest to gather both sides for a parley. Looking distraught, he obeyed. The crew then walked unarmed to a neutral meeting place between the factions. The rival tribe leader scowled, gripping his axe warily. Why should we trust your offer of parley, tricksters? Jane kept her tone peaceful. My crew and I have not been honest with you all, but we seek no bloodshed here today. As both groups looked on perplexed, she took a deep breath and continued. We are not really gods, but mortal travelers. Our ship crashed here by accident. Angry murmurs broke out. The rival leader pointed his axe accusingly. Lies! You are testing us with false humility. Jane stood calmly. I do not ask you to take my word for it. Let us show you. She led the wary tribes to the Explorer, where her crew demonstrated their technology's limitations under Rizavi's supervision. The rituals that had seemed mystical were revealed as simple mechanical processes. The Znorki muttered in shock and confusion. Jane addressed them gently. We are not divine, nor are we conquerors. We only wish to leave in peace once repairs are complete. The rival leader still appeared suspicious. How do we know this isn't a trick? Jane met his gaze. I offer you my hand unarmed. Let us speak together as equals. The leader hesitated, then finally clasped her arm, a gesture of trust. The Znorki followed suit, former enemies joining hands. Jane allowed herself a flicker of hope. Perhaps peace was possible after all. Over the next days, she made a point of living humbly alongside them, holding counsel and sharing meals. Bit by bit, both sides lowered their guard and doubts. On the eve of the explorer's departure, the Znorki held a feast for their former gods. The high priest raised a goblet. To new friends, who opened our eyes to the heavens, he toasted. There were cheers of huzzah, as they saw the crew off with dignity, rather than groveling. Jane met Rizavi's approving smile with her own. They had narrowly averted disaster, but the Znorki were stronger for it. Where once there had been only fear and awe, now there was possibility. The night before the explorer's scheduled departure, Captain Jane Doe stared up at the unfamiliar stars from her cabin doorway. It had been a turbulent few weeks on this strange planet, but tomorrow they would finally be on their way. She wondered if they had left the Znorki culture changed for the better, or if old hatreds would resurface after her crew left orbit. But she and Rizavi had done their best to unite the tribes and teach them cooperation. The rest was up to them now. A voice spoke up behind her. Penny for your thoughts, Captain. Jane turned to see Rizavi approaching, with 2 mugs of coffee in hand. She accepted one gratefully. Just hoping we'll leave this place better than we found it. Jane admitted that our divine visit didn't cause more harm than good. Rizavi gave a solemn nod. I know what you mean, but we helped open their minds to new possibilities. That's worth something. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, sipping their drinks. In the morning, the real work would begin, putting their vessel back together and charting a course home. But tonight, there was time to reflect. Do you think they'll join the galactic community someday? Rizavi wondered aloud. Jane gazed up at the boundless sky. Maybe. We've certainly accelerated their technological development. Who knows, in a few generations they may even reach the stars themselves. Rizavi chuckled. Think they'll remember us fondly when they do? Those nice aliens who pretended to be gods? As long as it's not those deceitful ones we sacrificed livestock to, Jane joked back. Their laughter carried warmth on the cool night air. Despite everything, the Znorki had accepted them in the end. Jane let the rest of her anxiety melt away. They would make it back home just fine. The next morning, the villages gathered to see the explorer ascend into the heavens. Chants of "Farewell, friends," rose from the crowd instead of worshipful prose. Jane smiled and waved goodbye from the bridge. She decided to leave one small parting gift, a transmitter keyed to the UFF emergency frequency. If the Znorki ever sought to follow in their footsteps, it would guide the way. Then, amid cries wishing them Godspeed, the explorer blasted into space. Jane leaned back contentedly in her chair, ready to lead her crew onward to new horizons and adventures. Wherever their travels took them next, first contact could hardly be more eventful than this one. A month after departing the Znorky homeworld, the explorer glided smoothly through a colorful nebula, its systems restored to full capacity. Captain Jane Doe smiled happily from her bridge chair, savoring the view. It was good to be back in familiar space. The strange planet already felt like a distant memory. "Captain!" Her comms officer suddenly spoke up. "We're receiving a priority hail ... IT quote, S the UFF flagship Vanguard." Jane quickly granted them video access. The face of Admiral Wren, a father figure from her academy days, appeared on screen. "Jane, you've had us worried sick," he scolded, but his eyes showed relief. "Your ship vanished from all sensors weeks ago with no trace." Jane quickly recounted their ill-fated wormhole detour and subsequent adventure. Wren listened in astonishment, but seemed satisfied the Znorky had come to no harm. "Well, it's damn good to see you safe and sound," he said gruffly. "Now hurry home, I'm buying the first round of drinks." Jane grinned. "Yes, sir. See you, Sue." A sudden impact rocked the ship violently. Alarms blared as she gripped her chair. "Report!" "Something just struck the engineering section," Rizavi responded tersely. "Multiple hull breaches. The core is destabilizing." Jane hastily cut the transmission with Wren. "Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." The bridge crew rushed to comply as smoke filled the compartment. Just as Jane turned to follow, an ominous groaning sound rose from deep within the vessel. She had just seconds to act before. With a thunderous boom, the Explorer came apart at the seams in a catastrophic warp core breach. The bridge exploded in a blinding flash of light as escape pods jettisoned away. Inside one capsule, Jane slowly regained consciousness, her head ringing. Rizavi and a few other survivors were crammed in with her. Jane clenched her fist angrily. An accident after all they had endured? Unacceptable. "Sound off," she ordered. Each officer confirmed they were alive, if a little worse for wear. Now they simply had to hang on and wait for pickup. Hours later, the welcome sight of the Vanguard filled their viewports. Tractor beams gently drew the pods into the pristine flight deck. As Jane disembarked, she was met with crisp salutes from the honor guard. Admiral Wren himself greeted her with a fierce embrace. "Thank God you're alive. When we detected the core breach, I feared the worst." Jane shook her head wryly. "Can't get rid of me that easy, Rennie, though the Explorer will be hard to replace." Wren smiled. "Perhaps, but I know just the ship for my finest captain." He led her proudly to view her new command, a state-of-the-art UFF cruiser, gleaming and ready for launch. Jane ran an appreciative hand over the smooth hull. After their trials, she and her crew deserved the best. This resolute lady would carry them bravely to future adventures beyond imagining,